I was just thinking about how, even if we didn't eat food, the energy in the air around us feeds us like how the sun feeds plants. James said, still finding the image to be funny but accurate. Maya looked at Kate and they giggled at what James had said. Shaking her head as though thinking James was being silly, Maya said, "What made you think that?" Just how even though we often feel hungry because our bodies are so good at using the food we eat, but it's not like if we stopped eating, then we'd end up dying or something. We could go for long periods of time without food because of the energy around us, James said as he shrugged. Tilting her head, Maya said, "That does make sense." She looked at Kate. Kate nodded. It's why people starting out and not being able to eat food aren't in much danger. Though, if they really felt the need to eat, then they could just go back through the portal and get food outside the Adventurers Guild. Even the people inside this place don't have to worry as much about starving to death. Though I wouldn't think it'd be a fun experience, Maya said. But what about if we were to leave the underground city? James wondered out loud. None of them had left the underground city since they had entered it, at least in the world beyond the portal. There was energy in the air, but what about outside the underground city? It would also likely be difficult to find food on a regular basis. With their bodies the way it was now, James worried that they'd quickly starve to death. Their bodies would rapidly burn through any remaining fat storage before they're able to find resources. He wondered whether it was due to their being exposed to the energy which caused the changes. The people that survived outside of the underground city wouldn't have their bodies changed like them, though they may be slimmer than when the world ended. They'd be able to handle long periods of famine. While they discussed the matter, they took down the Force Wolf from the tripod. It's much lighter compared to before, James commented with a grin. Maya laughed. I'd hope so. Just look at how much meat we removed. Kate grabbed the pole that they had used before, but this time, the repurposed branch was inserted into the wolf. The wolf would now be ready to be roasted over a fire. The fire was already set up to place the pole on top and have the wolf rotated over it. Without the excess meat and the legs being cut off, it would be a simple process to season the meat and let it cook. They made their way towards the fire. Maya and Kate casually carried the wolf due to most of the weight gone. James took the tarp that had the legs and meat. Grabbing the corners to create a makeshift carrying bag, he easily shouldered it. The wolf was placed over the fire to cook. Both of the women were now cutting up the herbs and spices before they proceeded to grind them up in a stone bowl. When James got close enough, his nose picked up the scent of the herbs and spices. That's going to taste really good on the wolf, he thought. Laying the tarp on the ground, James started the process of breaking up the legs at the joints. Seeing the pot, James placed the bones inside. They were already filled with enough water. Once all the legs were placed into the pot, James began tossing the vegetables inside. It was then just a simple process of putting the pot over some heated coals created as some of the logs turned black. Even if it didn't have flames, there was plenty of heat still coming off of it. Now, it just needs to boil, and then it'll simmer until all the nutrients are pulled out from the bones and vegetables. Then we'll filter out the liquid to be used for the stew. James grinned as he looked forward to the food.